In life, we have a moment of time to tell someone how we feel. It doesn't really matter if we get the chance always to do so, is true. But to the most important people in our lives, we have to have the right to speak, the right to be heard, and the right to receive a response that is professional, polite, and will actually right for our lives. There are plenty of people who want to make over someone's life. There are plenty of people who want to feel that they can live someone's life better than them. But the truth is, they've never lived their life. The truth is, they never were with them 24/7. They never watched their interactions. They never seen them perform. And openly, only on rare occasions do siblings and parents ever get a chance to see someone professionally engage in their life. In this moment of time, I'm talking about truth. The truth is that when we leave our mother and father's house into adulthood, we go off into the world and we learn how to handle ourselves. We learn the easy way, we learn the hard way, we learn from lessons of life, we learn from interactions with others, and we completely learn. Our learning comes from other people. Our learning comes from the social skills that are expected of us in the circles in which we network. Our learning comes from people who choose to be our mentors, and there's plenty who choose not to engage with us for whatever reason. They lose out on our productivity, they lose out on our performance, and they lose out on the relationship that might impact their lives in such a way that they might have catapulted themselves faster, farther, and more effectively had they interacted with us in the first place. There's always that moment in time when you realize that something is too late, but there's always that moment in time when the Lord is speaking to you loudly and clearly that says, you have made a mistake. You have literally made a mistake in your handling of the situation. You have made a mistake in your management of this issue. And you have made such a mistake that you have put yourself at legal or lethal risk. You see, the passions of the world are never the problem. It's the passion in people that creates a problem in us. It's not a me or you situation in the world of politics today. It's a our situation today. It's whether or not we believe in the laws of America. You see, we can have an entire community, an entire society of lawlessness. But if we do that, it means anything at all goes. It means the wild, wild west of long ago. It means that the modern day technologies, the modern day militia, the modern day anything that wants to happen in this world is then okay to flow and to flourish. The problem is that we have predators in the land. People who are literally raised to be predators by their horrible parents. And what I mean by horrible parents are they didn't bother 1 second after they produced an offspring to pick up an educational book on parenting. They didn't bother 1 second to pick up a book on the ages and stages of a child or childhood. There are plenty of that in the communities around impoverishment. The foolishness of that community is thinking if we populate the earth, then we become in power in numbers. Not entirely. If your people cannot join together and band together in harmony for the land, then you are not really an American citizen. We have plenty of people here who are continuing to produce their own language for their own comfort. It's true that when I had a family that came from a foreign land, we often spoke in that foreign language. Part of it was for efficiency. Part of it was for politeness. Part of it was to say, it's so damn time to go, let's go, without being rude in English. But the truth is that in life we have moments of time to prove who we are in the house of the Lord. And the house of the Lord is what created this land. Most people forget that people came to America to find a new opportunity to worship, to fellowship, and to flourish. The problem is we've gotten away from the forefathers' reasons of being in America. We have plenty of people that will drop some litter and won't go chase after it to pick it up. We have plenty of people that don't mind the fact that trash gets blown around on, well, frankly, a very windy, very stormy, volatile weather day. But the truth is there are a handful of people who are called environmentalists who do care about what's happening to our environment. There are plenty of county mounties in Canada, probably, but not necessarily in our farmlands, not necessarily in our forests, not necessarily in the mountain ranges of the western part of our nation. We have plenty of people who are coming here illegally and hiding out in places that they can find, well, solace, privacy, and, well, frankly, freedom. The problem is that people's idea of freedom have gotten away from them. Some people's idea of freedom is talk to my hand, which means don't even bother talking to me because I don't think you're worthwhile. I had one woman play that game on me once, and I simply honored her request. She put up her hand and said, don't talk to me. And I thought, isn't this interesting? I posted the code word of where I would be this morning, and the Lord showed me all the incredible signs of the universe that I would see you that day. Your initials and my initials on a truck, the birds flying overhead, and boom, right there you were standing before me. But I guess you expected me to fight with you in front of a restaurant full of people. I don't know, but it's ridiculousness. But when you put your hand up and said, don't talk to me, all I could say to you was, please don't go. And I walked back and I sat down because I'm a mature adult who recognizes personal boundaries. But what you failed to recognize is that you followed me to that place. You did that somewhat regularly. And you did it because of a need in your soul for my soul to care for you. So when you played that game, do you know how many times we've had that instance? Do you know how many times we actually went through that dance? Do you know how many times it sowed deep within my soul the love that I feel, the passion that I endure, and frankly, the unrequitedness is a lie. You do love me, which is what caused you to fight against me. You may be raging at me because I didn't call that one day, but I had a lot of reasons not to call. Part of it was your behavior and adolescence at that. You see, I'm an old soul, and an old soul doesn't get caught up in the melodrama of someone accusing them of something they did not do. In life, we have moments of time to show who we are in the house of the Lord, and when you failed yourself was when you failed God. People don't always think about that. You see, people always want to monstrously be in power and in control of something that they didn't like or that they didn't want to participate in or that they just didn't want to. Well, guess what? It's someone else's life. It's not your life to manage. It's not your life to monitor. It's not your life to lord over. And yes, I'm practically now talking about family members who think they have the right to monstrously go after an adult, mature child in the most villainous, vile, and violent of ways. You see, I can come up with all the alliteration in the world, but unless you understand education, unless you understand the training of people, you will never get the problems of our land. The problems of our land are constantly 100% a training issue, an educational, a fundamental educational issue, a total failure of schools and elementary schools to teach the rules of life. The rules of life is that we must earn a living. The only way to earn a living is to produce a social skill set. Social skills are not taught correctly in our schools. They are not taught correctly by our principals, who are somewhat damaged goods most of the time. They are not protected by our teachers, who are also socially inept because their entire bubble is their classroom, the people that they teach, and the few people that they interact with on a daily basis, that they choose to pursue in the halls, or they choose to pursue in the teacher's break room, or that just so happen to be on the same lunch schedule as them. You see, in the real world of men and women who work for a living, and what I mean by that is they literally have to produce sales every single day. Every human being on LinkedIn as a professional network is looking for the next opportunity in life. Those who say, I'm not open to this, are fools of America. They literally don't understand how fast the foreign world is catching up and exceeding us in social skills, not at all, but in the lies they tell themselves that they can come here, dominate here, play here, destroy here, and leave here whenever they feel like it. We have a real problem in the collegiate community of international students at Playboy universities who literally are denying every law we have. They're bringing guns to campus. They are blowing things up in apartment buildings. I've actually heard things explode in apartment buildings on campus, and I wonder where the hell are the hall monitors for these facilities. But there aren't any. Why? Because they're apartment complexes. They're expecting these young adults from foreign lands to know our laws, that we don't light fireworks in the house. Maybe they do that shit in China, but we certainly don't do it here. The foolishness of the situation is a lack of a training program at the borders. The foolishness in our classroom is a lack of training, age-appropriate training to children in the real realities of life. That if you want to work at a level that allows you the opportunity to succeed the lifestyle that your parents are currently providing you, you have to put your nose to the grindstone. You have to learn social skills that are leadership quality, and you have to learn how to interact with other people who are totally and completely different, sometimes polar opposite than you, sometimes exactly the same as you. But at some point, one will decide to bend and soften. I am a total driver personality. I got pegged for that a long time ago in a Wilson Learning class in manufacturing. But when I'm with a fellow driver, especially if she's female, I will acquiesce and allow her to drive. Part of it is because of our social mores, that women have all this power. They do, to a point. The other part is a gentleman behavior that says, I don't have to win in this situation because my job is to raise you up on Ingalls wings and allow you to soar. And if I soar too, then I've created a positive team environment. In my lifetime, I have never seen such idiocy in my own sibling set is fairly true. They live in little bubble worlds with their little social cliques, but they're not thriving in any way to succeed. Their husbands are not providing for them a house that will be theirs for the rest of their lives. And openly, it wasn't a foolishness of match. It was an idiocy of idea about how to spend money, how to invest, how to handle finances, and literally how to not overspend. Part of the problem of an impoverished childhood, which I recognize being the last of 6 children, is a need for items because we never had them really of our own accord as children. We had hand-me-ups, hand-me-downs, hand-me-overs, and toys, for the most part, that came through a generation of children. Now, when I talk about this, I recognize that in my 20s and 30s, when I had a professional life, I sort of bought toys just for the hell of it. But I have since thought that I would give those away. I set them aside in special boxes to sell or to provide to the children of the woman that I adore. And when I go to my storage unit and find those things missing, when I find that my late mother was asking me, could she sell my chairs? No. I literally went out of my way to find those vehicles, those opportunities for my life, to decorate my home. How dare she thinks that she has the right to sell one thing of mine without my consent, without my permission, and even the thought of that? Do I walk into her home and offer to give away her property? I don't, but there are people who work in her facility that will walk in her home when she's not there, and she doesn't mind it because she likes them. But what she doesn't recognize is they are pilfering from her. They are stealing her jewelry. They are stealing her things. And I even know that we have an in-law that has been going to her place when she's not there. Now, how do I know that? Because I've seen it. How do I know that? Because she complains of things being missing. But none of my sisters and brothers have the right to take a thing from my father's house. Now, my father's house in heaven is different than my late father, Bill Enson's house. But the truth is, it is the same. Because of the liabilities of my late father, they flourished in their abilities to produce an income, to produce a retirement, more importantly, that allowed them to live in not luxury, but indefinitely in fancyhood. My father did that with great planning. My father did that with his social skills. My father did that with his professional skill sets and choosing an old world company that believed in taking care of its workers. Today we live in an age where companies don't believe in looking out for their workers in retirement. And what that produces in our cities is poverty, impoverished thinking, entitlement thinking, and a total lack of regard for other people's boundaries, physical spaces, and, well, frankly, personal safety. I have seen a total change and shift in employees at several restaurants, and I wonder, do the national brands, do the managers that run those places recognize who is legitimately there and who has stolen their way, possibly through killing and murder, into their facilities? I don't mean to disparage the truth of the world we live in, but we must have an accountability factor that must be trained. And when we have communities of Hispanics and blacks and Indians and Muslims and others who come to our land with no English language skills, sneaking through our systems and getting themselves in place over our food, over our property management companies, over our lawn care, we are all at great risk. The enemy within is often the enemy just outside the door. And these people who are upset about immigration, I am sorry. But I had to jump through a lot of circles and a lot of hoops and a lot of reading and a lot of purchasing of books on immigration to figure out how to help someone to have an education. But you know what? They returned home to their country when it was all said and done. The shame of that is a loss of family. The shame of that is a lack of regard for them by my own immediate birth family. And the shame that they will face before the Lord in heaven is that they thought they had the right to continue to interact with my late spouse without my consent. There are many words of the language that mean many things today. And when a man speaks, he has the right to speak. And when a man tells a girl he loves her, he has the right to tell her in person. He has the right to tell her across social skills. He has the right to tell her across social media. But the problem we have in today's world is that social media companies are interfering with our rights, our freedom rights, our fundamental right to assembly, our fundamental right to communication, our fundamental right to reporting, our fundamental right to not bear arms, but to protect our lives through getting better employment. When these social media companies got their power, no one paid attention. But now that they have their power, we as people who love politics and politicians who are in the role of serving their communities must seriously look at the power of Facebook. They must seriously look at the power of LinkedIn. They must seriously look at the power of Twitter. That these companies are now being utilized to allegedly help us gain employment, but they are charging us for that. Something that we used to be able to do by just contacting a company website and doing things easily without cost are now having a charge, and the people that are making that money are just those simple companies. Those companies are also being violated in a way by people who want to look us up. They want to see what our life is like, and I can understand that. I desperately want to know how the life of the woman I love is going. All I know is that she continues to violently get upset with me, and I can't figure out why. I don't think a proposal of marriage is an ill-willed concept, but her idea is that it is possibly because she did something immoral or illegal towards my name. That will be between her and God, but the minute that she chose another, the minute that she denied any regard for a sincere proposal of a true suitor, she violated God's plan. She insulted the Lord, and openly she cannot blame a human being for that. Her personal responsibility is her handling of her own relationships, and her personal responsibility failed her long ago when she pretended like she could swing into a town, become very close, intimate friends with someone, and then walk away as if it didn't mean a thing. That was not her personality type. That was the legitimacy of her situation, the vileness of her husband, and frankly, he was a derelict in his duties. There is no reason that a man cannot pursue a woman when her husband is derelict, but there is a reason that a woman should say no when she is married. And the lie in those people is that it doesn't matter, that bed opportunities don't matter. I had a woman literally parade me through her mansion into closets that hadn't been finished, completely in the dark, through all different places, in the skimpiest of sundresses. As a man, I was beyond ready to handle those situations. But as a Christian at the time, I knew that my obligation was to regard the fact that she was 100% completely betrothed and married to a monstrous lying asshole of a husband who owned that property, which meant, as tempting as every aspect of those moments were, in my soul, in my heart, in my mind, in my loins, that I, as a gentleman, had to simply, gently, and quietly say, "Let's go outside and sit on the picnic bench." That's the difference between an honorable man and a dishonorable man. A dishonorable man will just take advantage. An honorable man will recognize all the relationships involved, the power to hurt, the power to help. And when there are children about, when there's children involved, when children can be impacted by a love affair, one has to simply say, we just have to be close family friends. In life, we have moments of time to tell people how we feel. I have two women that I love very deeply, but two women have lied in their rights to ruin a man's life. At the same time, I have siblings who lie about their rights over my life. They have no more rights. The minute they betrayed me, the minute they gave up my privacy, the minute that they thought they would get involved in some superior attitudinal way as if they were a parent of mine, was the minute that they lost all regard from me. That is their foolishness before the house of God. The Lord knows what he makes, and he continues to make people like me and others like me for reasons unknown. But the truth is, we cannot honor the Lord's word in the Bible or in the Quran or any other work of history that regards Jesus or God without accepting the fact that in every single piece of literature it says quite clearly, even in metaphysical works, that Lord God made them all. In this time, I'm telling you one thing. In this time, I might be telling you something else. But more importantly, the Lord Jesus, or whatever you believe in the spirit realm, or whatever God you profess in your life, is speaking to you quietly about your own life, about my life, about someone else's life. It's hard to say, because only God knows what you're thinking every single day. And here's what I've proven almost to 100% T, that there is a God, that he knows what you are, he knows who you will become, and he knows, for the most part, what your life is supposed to be. But when you deviate from his plan, when you go too far astray in your promiscuity, in your foolishness of choice, your life begins to suffer. Your children's lives will suffer, and for the men attacking a life without a regard to God's plan for someone else's life, they themselves will find themselves in the pandemic, struggling, losing family, and not acknowledging that the Lord God has spoken. When God speaks, it's important to listen. I myself have been impacted by Muslims and others who thought they would lord over my life through our record systems. Hispanics who thought they would steal my identity because they were here illegally and unlawfully. The truth is, we have to have borders. The truth is, we have to close them. And the truth is that there are plenty of people here already in our land that do not belong, that need to go home, and that frankly are ruining our country, because once they deny one law, they will deny the rest. Thanks for listening.